At E3 2005, Nintendo unveiled their next system, the Nintendo Revolution, back when people thought it was going to be incredibly powerful and the final name wasn't going to make me fucking lose it. One of the primary aspects of the system detailed at the event was its backwards compatibility with GameCube games. Yeah, you could use GameCube games so much they incorporated the feature into the logo itself. I'm really surprised others haven't gone with this design. But not only was it going to be backwards compatible with GameCube games, but all games as well. NES, SNES, and N64 games digitally downloadable via a virtual console, as they put it. This was a major deal. Nintendo home consoles didn't really do backwards compatibility back then. They only really did it with their handhelds. Sure, you could play some older Game Boy games on the TV with some of them, and some games were re-released, but by and large, you had to keep your old systems to play your old games. This way, you could play all the new Nintendo games, play your old GameCube discs, and download titles from all the other systems. You didn't need those old pieces of shit anymore. It was great. The Virtual Console was further detailed at E3 2006, right around the time Nintendo officially announced the Revolution's real name was, you gotta be fucking kidding me. All these old games were playable with the Retro Mote, the Wii Classic Controller's maiden name apparently. I love the E3 2006 user interface for the Virtual Console. Being able to see 3D renders of the box art, that was a nice touch. When the Wii launched on November 19th, 2006, you could hop on the Wii Shop channel and get to downloading 12 titles in total across the NES, SNES, N64, and Sega Genesis. Yeah, even Sega got in on the fun with Altered Beast and Sonic the Hedgehog. The launch lineup had some of the major games you'd probably want, stuff like Mario 64 and Zelda, but they also launched it with Wario's Woods and Soccer. Wario's Woods is an impulse buy at Walmart at best. Nintendo's strategy with re-releasing Virtual Console games was always interesting to say the least. Like, Nintendo themselves didn't release another Virtual Console game after launch until 2 weeks later, and it was just Donkey Kong Jr. At least the Virtual Console had a lot of third-party support, so that definitely helped things out. Just 2 days after the Wii's launch, TurboGrafx-16 titles appeared on the shop, Genesis titles were added constantly, and Nintendo was just sitting there squirting out ice hockey and tennis back-to-back. But then Christmas Day 2006 hit, and Nintendo finally re-released Super Mario Bros. It's crazy it wasn't available at launch, but it made for an incredibly smart release on Christmas Day. If you didn't download Super Mario Bros. On your Wii, that was punishable by death in some countries. As time went on, more systems were added: Neo Geo, Sega Master System, even Commodore 64. Virtual Console Arcade was added in 2009, which was supposed to be a place for old school arcade games to roam free, and instead it was barely supported. NES games got the most love, over 90 released here, and then at the very end of the line was N64 with only 21 games in total. I've sneezed more games than that before. The Virtual Console was ridiculously active from 2006 to 2008, but after that, not so much. Nintendo already put out most of their big titles by the end of 2008, so it was up to the third parties to pick up the pace afterwards. For some reason, from spring 2012 to summer 2013, SNK put out 25 Neo Geo games, many of them well after the Wii U released. Some games were delisted over time, stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES, SimCity on the SNES, all of the Commodore 64 games vanished in 2013. The Final Fight games, Yoshi's Cookie, a few of the Street Fighters, the Donkey Kong Country games disappeared in 2012, and then went back up in 2015 for some reason. It's obvious as time went on that the Wii's Virtual Console was running out of steam with some delistings and less games being added, but that didn't detract from the overall experience. Having all these systems represented on the Wii was magical. Not only could people relive their childhood memories by playing their favorite NES and SNES games, but many could create new memories by playing these classic games for the first time ever. I mean, the Wii was the perfect platform for NES games. You look at the Wii Remote and give it a little of this. Boom, NES controller. You have all the buttons there, and it feels close enough to work well. Since the Wii Remote didn't have enough buttons for a lot of the other platforms offered, you would have to use either the Wii Classic controller or the GameCube controller. The Classic controller was pretty great for SNES games, but a little cramped for something like N64. They later re-released the Classic Controller Pro, which was much more appropriate for 3D games. The GameCube controller is very similar, great for 3D, ho-hum for 2D. Torture is consider playing an SNES game on this thing. The buttons are all over the place. And you couldn't change the button layout for most VC games. I think you could do that with Virtual Console Arcade titles, but I never downloaded any of those. Most games are pretty faithful to their original releases. You couldn't do anything crazy like apply filters or whatever, but some of them got a little adding online play to Super Street Fighter 2 on the Sega Genesis. I still get chills whenever I hear that. You could leave a game and come back to it right where you left off with most titles except for the N64 and Neo Geo games. I always felt worried whenever I would do this. You don't specifically hit a save button or whatever, you just leave the game and hope to God when you come back it picks up where you left off. Some problematic things such as brand names or flashing lights were either toned down or removed entirely. Some features were added, like being able to save your Pokemon Snap pictures to the Wii message board, but overall, if you were playing a Virtual Console game, you were playing the original release. The games looked pretty nice. Sure, NES games looked a bit dull, but they looked so organic, like you were playing them off an original console. You look at NES emulation now and it's stupid crisp and colorful, but in my opinion, it looks a bit more artificial. It doesn't look like it's running off of an original NES. Don't get me wrong, this looks way better, but this looks more natural. Price points of games were pretty fair, but they were fairly standard across an entire console's catalog. NES games were generally 500 Wii points, or 5 bones. SNES and Genesis were 8, N64 10. TurboGrafx 16 was whatever they felt like that morning. At least they kept things consistent and memorable. It was easy for me to know exactly how much a game would cost. But still, Mario 3 and Soccer were the exact same price. Ouch. Now, they actually offered a few games that never released in North America, which was awesome. However, they were more expensive than regular games because they labeled them as imports. What the hell are you talking about? You're not importing anything. It's a digital file. Now, I really wanted to get Virtual Console games back in 2009, but the term Wi-Fi was completely foreign to my family at the time. I had to do so much damn research as a 12-year-old, and I found the Nintendo Wi-Fi USB connector. I told my parents that was the ticket to downloading Wario's Woods, damn it! We went to Circuit City and left with this thing. I knew for a fact it wasn't what I wanted, but whatever. It was a third-party Ethernet adapter for the Wii. We didn't get a Wi-Fi router until a couple months later, so I had to awkwardly connect my Wii via an Ethernet cable each time I wanted to go online. But it worked. I bought Super Mario Bros. 1 and 3, Punch-Out!, Kid Icarus, Mega Man 1 and 2, Mario RPG, Donkey Kong Country. There were so many great games I replayed on the Wii Virtual Console, or played for the first time ever.